West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
Joining me now is Democratic Congressman Jamie Raskin of Maryland. He's the ranking Democrat on the House Oversight Committee. Congressman, it's great to see you this afternoon.
Great to be with you, Jen.
Before we get to impeachment, there's a lot to discuss there. I do want to ask you about the gag order that Jack Smith is seeking on Trump. And Trump's response was to say Jack Smith was, quote, wants to take away my rights under the First Amendment. You're an expert on such things. Explain to us what is wrong with that argument.
Well, what Jack Smith is asking for is, of course, standard in courtrooms across the country where there are various limitations put on what different parties to a case can say in order not to prejudice the jury pool or otherwise compromise the proceedings. So it's not a First Amendment question.
Now, moving on to impeachment, which obviously was big news on the Hill this past week. Trump denies involvement in this impeachment effort. We heard him say that in a Meet the Press interview this morning. But do you think this would really be happening if Trump didn't want it to happen, given the reliance of so many leaders on him and the party?
No more than I think that the January 6th insurrection would have happened in the absence of Donald Trump's insistence and direction. He obviously is at the center of the whole thing. His wounded pride will not allow him to run for president against Joe Biden as a twice impeached, 4 times indicted former president looking at 91 criminal charges if he couldn't say that the other guy has been impeached too. It's pretty much as simple as that. And damn the evidence. Who cares whether there's no high crime or misdemeanor? It's just within the power of the House majority from Trump's perspective to deliver.
Now, you're the ranking Democrat on the Oversight Committee, a very busy job. You've talked about what they've requested for and what they've gotten in the past. Republicans on the committee are really leaning into what they think they'll uncover from bank records. They've already obtained thousands of them, and correct me if I'm wrong there, but is there anything they haven't had access to that they've requested?
No, in fact, Chairman Comer has repeatedly boasted that he's gotten 100% of everything that he was looking for in terms of subpoenaed documents and witnesses in order to prove to his party that he's been doing his job. He's been saying, I've gotten everything I'm looking for. And we've looked at 12,000 pages worth of bank documents, 2,000 SARS reports, suspicious activity reports, tons of witnesses who've come in, including the president's bookkeeper and Hunter Biden's business partner, Devin Archer. And so there's no shortage of evidence. There's overwhelming evidence. It's evidence of absence of culpability on the part of Joe Biden for any crime you can imagine. They haven't laid a glove on him. So if they go forward with this ridiculous impeachment, we will make them demonstrate what are the factual building blocks of it. I think a lot of them, including Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz, would love to rush this thing to the floor so they can all make a bunch of phony speeches. But there's no evidence there. So we're going to say, all right, if this is really about high crimes and misdemeanors, show us the evidence. What is the factual evidence? What are you talking about? If they had a single factual episode that demonstrated the high crimes and misdemeanors that they're alleging, everybody would know about it. But there's just nothing there. They're completely empty-handed. So we'll put them to the test.
Yeah, facts to back up an impeachment feels very reasonable, Congressman. President Trump also told NBC's Kristen Welker that it is, quote, very unlikely he'll pardon himself, but that he could have when he was president. Let's take a listen to that.
Mr. President, if you were reelected, would you pardon yourself?
I could have pardoned myself. Do you know what? I was given an option to pardon myself. I could have pardoned myself when I left. People said, would you like to pardon yourself? I had a couple of attorneys that said, you can do it if you want. I said, I would never give myself a pardon.
Even if you were reelected in this moment?
Well, I think it's very unlikely. What did I do wrong? I didn't do anything wrong.
There's been so much reporting, Congressman, about why he's running, his team, and have said why they think he's running. What do you make of this claim that he says it's unlikely he would pardon himself?
Well, I'm sure John Eastman and Rudy Giuliani have been advising him that he can render a self-pardon. I mean, he can surround himself with whatever kind of legal sycophants he wants to tell him that, but it cuts against the cardinal principle of the judicial system, as James Madison laid it out in the Federalist Papers, where he said that the premise of our law is that no man, no person can be a judge in his own cause, in his own case. And of course, that's a recipe for authoritarianism and fascism, because at that point, he could not only try to overthrow an election and the Constitution, as he's advised several times, he can brag about it and then pardon himself for his crime. So I think that I would hope the entire judiciary and the American people would rebel against such an obnoxious concept.
Also on the subject of pardons, I want you to listen to what Trump told NBC about pardoning members of the Proud Boys.
Proud Boys leader Enrique Tarrio was sentenced to 22 years in jail. Now that you know what the sentence is, 22 years in jail, will you give him a pardon? Will you give other Proud Boys a pardon?
I don't know him. I never met him. I never heard of him until I started reading this
Will
stuff.
you pardon him?
But I want to tell you, he and other people have been treated horribly.
Will you pardon him?
In Minneapolis, I'd certainly look at it. I'd look at that, and I'd look at all the other people that have suffered, the J6 people.
I mean, Enrique Tarrio, which you know well, is a leader of the insurrection, part of the problem, to state it mildly. Trump certainly tried to dodge it there. He didn't say no, but what did you make of his answer, and how concerning is that to you?
I mean, it's predictable, but utterly outrageous and scandalous. You've got a former president of the United States who's running for president saying that he will consider, thereby telegraphing his real intent to all of his followers, pardoning people who've been convicted of seditious conspiracy, which means conspiracy to overthrow the government of the United States. And of course, Trump set all of those events into motion with his determination to overthrow the 2020 presidential election, to void out Joe Biden's victory by more than 7 million votes in 306 to 232 in the Electoral College. And now he's further giving aid and comfort to the insurrectionists by promising them, or at least heavily intimating, that he will give them a pardon for what they did. So we are up against exactly the same kind of authoritarianism that we witnessed on January 6th. And America needs to understand we're just in the middle of this struggle. We're not over it in any sense. I know, there's a way in which the Republicans' opposition to Trump's impeachment or conviction, except for a noble 10 members in the House and 7 in the Senate, that their opposition was a tragedy, and there's a temptation to look at all of this as a farce. But it is a farce that could bring the republic to its knees. And I would much rather see the dissolution of the Republican Party than the U.S. Constitution in the American Republic.
Before I let you go, Congressman, I wanted to ask you, because you were recently asked about Kamala Harris being on the ticket as the vice president. You've been such a supporter of the Biden-Harris agenda and presidency and vice presidency. Are you confident in the ticket, and how do you feel about the vice president remaining on the ticket?
Great. I feel excellent about that, and there should be no confusion about it. I think someone was trying to get me to pick a fight with my friend Nancy Pelosi, which I'm not going to do. We're all behind the Biden-Harris administration, which has delivered spectacular, remarkable victories in a $1.2 trillion in infrastructure of America, in the Inflation Reduction Act, in dramatic reductions in healthcare costs for the American people, in the Medicare program, in real climate change advocacy and defense against the nightmare of climate change. So we've been making tremendous progress under Biden-Harris, and we're all for the ticket. And, you know, I know, again, there seems to be an effort to say, well, if there's chaos on the Republican side, there's got to be chaos on the Democratic side. There's not. And I think that Biden and Harris have done a remarkable job against all the political odds as they face a rule or ruin faction within the Republican Party, which arrived at work this last week with just 3 goals. 1, to shut down the government of the United States. 2, to impeach the president of the United States. And 3, to overthrow the Speaker of the United States. So
Congressman,
it's like Alfred Pennyworth said in Batman, some men just like to burn everything down.
It is Monday, the 18th of September of 2023, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner, the English Bulldog, is our snoozing sous chef. Precious, the little Yorkie, is our door girl, and she will be seating you directly for our especially special, daily special River City Hash Mondays, because, as you know, on the weekends, for those establishments that are open on Mondays, they will have a blue plate special, and that special will, I've got to be honest with you, what was left over from the weekend. They put it together, and it's reconstituted, repurposed as a gourmet delight. Here at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, it might be some slop everywhere else, but here, no, we elevate. At least we try. So, how are you? How was your weekend? Hopefully it wasn't too weather related. I know there was some weather going on for some of you out there, with weather coming right up that eastern seaboard. Those of you who are in the Canadian reaches, wow, take care. Boy. Yeah, Ricky is out there on the Canadian eastern seaboard, so we'll hear more from her about what's going on. So take care out there. Okay, so out here, we've been doing pretty well, except for I don't know, the usual. I gotta say, I don't remember, even when, like, the Symbionese Liberation Army kidnapped Patty Hearst, I really don't remember, like, a whole segment of American society threatening the judges in the case. I just don't, I don't remember it. I don't remember them threatening the prosecutors. I don't remember any of that. Now, I do remember when the Rajneeshis moved from Laguna Beach up to Eastern Oregon. Yeah, a lot of what we're seeing now, they did in that little town. I think it was Antelope. Yeah, they took over this town and tried to almost take over the state. They not only threatened prosecutors and state attorneys, they tried to kill them, poison them. Yeah, yep. They went so far as to essentially poison the salad bar at this local Sizzler to get people sick so that they couldn't show up to the polls. And indeed, that kind of happened. Sounds familiar in a way, except for, well, I don't know. I wouldn't put anything above these people. Hell, they kill doctors in the middle of a church service because they believe in God. God told me to kill this doctor in church while he was celebrating or worshiping God. They'll do anything to meet their ends. They'll hypnotize people to do it for them, too, and they do. People do it for them. That's what they're hoping for now. Okay. Oh, did you watch Meet the Press? I didn't. I gotta tell you, I mean, I stopped watching Meet the Press when Russert pissed me off. I caught a couple of Dick Gregory and I said, nope. Got other things to do at that time of the morning. Remember Charles Kuralt? Mom likes to watch that Sunday morning show on CBS because of Charles Kuralt. Yeah, we remember him. A little bit different format now, but, a little different than Meet the Press. Boy, when Meet the Press first came out, they had like a panel of interrogators. And leading black luminaries would come on Meet the Press to pretty much get like a new a-hole drilled for them by these guys. And they were always guys. Not now. I'm not saying that they're all guys. I'm just saying that they used to have, like, shall we say, probing questions. And then, in some ways, outright disdain. And we were told that, well, that's the press's job. Well, what's the press's job now? Jeez. Are we so porno-driven in our society that everybody's got to get fluffed who's in power? My God. The whole idea of fluffing is that you're not supposed to see that. God. Takes the magic away. Okay. It's Monday. River City Hash Mondays. What's left over from the weekend. And, well, we got actually stuff happening today. Jeffrey Clark is trying to sever himself. I wish someone would. Not from this court case necessarily, but I don't know. This guy has already severed whatever sense of morality that he may have had at one time. With what it is now, none. And I love how the people with the least amount of morality and ethics are so willing to pass judgment on everybody else. I mean, think about it. We got Nazis and crooks calling Joe Biden an international crime boss that no one's ever known about. The guy who was accused of being the poorest member of Congress. Who took Amtrak every weekend so that he could visit his sons, his surviving sons, while they were still recuperating from the auto accident that killed his wife and daughter. Who are buried at a cemetery that he goes to visit so that young, I don't know, cruel, ghoulish, young, I call him, brown shirt goose steppers in the press from ABC, a producer reporter, ostensibly, yells across the cemetery if he's going to pardon. Will Joe pardon Hunter? Where his wife and daughter are buried, and also Bo. Okay. That's how that goes. No one's going to yell at Trump, what's really buried with Ivana, whenever they go see him at Bedminster. Probably because they know they get tackled. Without Trump even saying anything. They know what to do. People who work for him know what to do. Even people who don't work for him, they just want to be like him. Trump's the only person who speaks to me, and we're supposed to honor those people? Give me a break. Monday. It's Monday. All right. So much more that we could get onto, but why don't we give ourselves a little centering and fill you in on what we have in store for you, the curated part of the show. And I actually think that it's quite a show. All right. Well, at the top, of course, that was Raskin blasting Trump for, floating a pardon for the Proud Boys. January 6th, I'm going to look at them. Yeah, you will. Hopefully from the inside. On the rest of the menu here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, a Black Alabama high school band director was tased and then arrested after Birmingham police ordered him to end the performance. Wow. I guess they didn't like the marching. An Oregon judge will decide whether the gun control law approved by voters last November violates the state's constitution. You know, this is like supposedly one of the strictest gun laws in the nation. What does it encompass? Oh, a background check. Gun safes. Yeah, terrible things like that. Just so constitutionally questionable. And the Mississippi River is running so low, barge companies are limiting their loads, just as farmers want to move their crops downriver. Wow. After the break, we move to the chef's table where a newly discovered letter in the Vatican archives suggests Pope Pius XII may have known about the Holocaust. Well before previously thought by some people. Lots of us speculated. A lot of us did. And tens of thousands of South Korean teachers rallied for new laws to protect them from abusive parents. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. At netrootsradio.com. To the right of the page is the chat room link, monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thank you, Kelly. Across the page from that chat room link, near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, there is the link to our Patreon page, and I'll go ahead and let Tom Hartman fill you in about that a little later here. Real soon, as a matter of fact. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, Mastodon, Spoutable, Blue Sky, etc., go to @Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of that. Thank you, Tom. Or takes care of those. Thanks, Tom. Follow me on Twitter, Mastodon, Spoutable, Blue Sky, Instagram, Tumblr, yada, yada, yada. You can find me at Justice Putnam, or in some cases simply as Justice Putnam. And you can follow me there or on those various platforms. And I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Kos 10 minutes before showtime. And if you follow those social media accounts that I have, you'll have easy access to the Daily Kos show notes and links diary that automatically gets published 10 minutes before showtime, because that's how I like to put it in. Yeah, put it in queue, and it does its deal. You can also follow the show on Twitter, such as it is, at Cookbook West. And please do pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube. Oh, not Spreaker. Yeah, Spreaker. Just not Stitcher. You can find us YouTube, iTunes, etc., just not on Stitcher because of SiriusXM. And you know how I feel about SiriusXM. Okay. This first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy is from Alabama.com by Carol Robinson. The band director of a Jefferson County high school was tased and arrested by Birmingham police when authorities say he would not order his band to stop playing at a football game. The incident happened on Thursday night following the Jackson Olin High School versus Minor High School football game, which was played at Jackson Olin. The director who was arrested is Johnny Mims, Jefferson County school officials confirmed. Mims took over as band director in 2018 after serving as the director of orchestra and bands at Mainland High School in Daytona Beach and director of bands at New Smyrna Beach High School in New Smyrna Beach, Florida, according to information found on the school website. We are aware of the incident that occurred after the Minor and Jackson Olin football game, Superintendent Walter Gunsolin said in a prepared statement and in an accent totally made up on the spot. I am in the process of gathering all the facts and feel it would be inappropriate to comment further until that process is complete. I urge everyone not to jump to conclusions. Except I think they're burying the band director, but that's just me. Now, Birmingham Police spokesman Officer Truman Fitzgerald released this account of what happened, because what the cops say in small-town America always is credible. Don't you know? After the football game ended, Birmingham officers were in the process of clearing out the stadium and observed both bands still performing. Oh my. They had to make sure they got to the donut shop before it got, shut down for the night. I thought they stayed open all night, especially for cops. Maybe not. Well, officers spoke with both schools' band directors to end the performance so students and attendees would leave the stadium. Damn it, leave. Officers were able to get Jackson Olin's band to stop performing, but when they approached Mims and began asking him to get his band to stop performing, Mims did not comply with multiple officers' requests to stop his band from performing. And in fact, he instructed his band to continue performing. The band director would not comply. A Birmingham Police Department sergeant was among the officers who attempted to get the band director to stop his band from performing. During the officer's interaction with Mims, the decision was made to place him in custody. Officers attempted to take Mims into custody for disorderly conduct when a physical altercation ensued between the band director, Birmingham School system security personnel, and Birmingham officers. Oh, you mean he squirmed on the ground when you threw him face first into the field? Tackled him. During the physical altercation,
Birmingham officers attempted to get Mims to place his hands behind his back, but he refused. The arresting officers alleges Mims pushed him during the arrest. The band director. The arresting officer then subdued Mims with a taser, which ended the physical confrontation. Well, that's what it is. It's a compliance tool, isn't it? Birmingham Fire and Rescue had to treat Mims at the stadium, and then they took him to University of Auburn Birmingham Hospital, which is standard protocol after this type of incident. Then after being discharged from the hospital, officers transported Mims to the Birmingham City Jail, where he was booked in and subsequently bonded out after hours or maybe even most of the day into the next day. That's how they do it. Officers presented the case to the City of Birmingham Magistrate's Office and obtained warrants for disorderly conduct, harassment, and resisting arrest. The Birmingham Police Department's Internal Affairs Division investigates all incidents where an officer uses force during an arrest. Claire Rush and Lindsay Whitehurst of the Associated Press brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy River City Hash Mondays. An Oregon judge is set to decide whether a gun control law approved by voters last November violates the state's constitution in a trial scheduled to start today. The law, one of the toughest in the nation, was among the first gun restrictions to be passed after a major U.S. Supreme Court ruling last year changed the guidance judges are expected to follow when considering Second Amendment cases. Measure 114 has been tied up in federal and state courts since it was narrowly passed by voters in November of 2022, casting confusion over its fate. The law requires people to complete a gun safety training course and undergo a criminal background check in order to obtain a permit to buy a firearm. Oh, horrors! The measure also bans high-capacity magazines holding more than 10 rounds. And they don't like that because they want to be able to kill people. And they're bad shots, and they need to fill the area with lead. Okay? That's why they need more than 10 shots. Circuit Judge Robert S. Ratio will preside over the trial this week in Harney County, a vast rural area in southeastern Oregon. Bundy Land. That's where Malheur is located, so they could take it over. Yeah. Now, Ratio temporarily blocked the law from taking effect in December after gun owners filed a lawsuit arguing it infringed upon their right to bear arms under the Oregon Constitution. Oh, my God, a criminal background check. Yeah, because they're a bunch of crooks, and obviously they can't get guns. Is that why? The Oregon measure was passed after a Supreme Court ruling in June of 2022 created new standards for judge weighing gun laws and fueled a national upheaval in the legal landscape for U.S. firearm law. The ruling tossed aside a balancing test judges had long used to decide whether to uphold gun laws. It directed them to only consider whether a law is consistent with the country's historical tradition of firearm regulation, rather than take into account public interests like promoting public safety. Since then, there has been confusion about what laws can survive. Courts have overturned laws designed to keep weapons away from domestic abusers, felony defendants, you're like Hunter, and marijuana users. The Supreme Court is expected to decide this fall whether some decisions have gone too far. Of the Associated Press brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. A long stretch of hot, dry weather has left the Mississippi River so low that barge companies are reducing their loads just as Midwest farmers are preparing to harvest crops and send tons of corn and soybeans downriver to the Gulf of Mexico. The transport restrictions are a headache for barge companies, but even more worrisome for thousands of farmers who have watched drought scorch their fields for much of the summer. Now they will face higher prices to transport what remains of their crops. Farmer Bruce Peterson, who grows corn and soybeans in southeastern Minnesota, chuckled wryly that the dry weather had withered his family's crops so extensively they wouldn't need to worry so much about the high cost of transporting the goods downriver. We haven't had rain here for several weeks, so our crop size is shrinking, Peterson said. Unfortunately, that has taken care of part of the issue. About 60% of U.S. grain exports are taken by barge down the Mississippi to New Orleans, where the corn, soybean, and wheat is stored and ultimately transferred to other ships. It's usually an inexpensive, efficient way to transport crops, as a typical group of 15 barges lashed together carries as much cargo as 1,000 trucks. But as river levels drop, that cost has soared. The cargo rate from St. Louis southward is now up 77% above the 3-year average. Just don't blame it on the climate. Okay, let us now go to our break. And when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. This week, Not So Equal. There's no better starting place for the creators of drama than visceral desires from deep in the human psyche. In a world rife with injustice, the producers of the original 80s TV show, The Equalizer, understood the power of a persona with unfettered franchise to bring justice, especially where institutions have failed. Unlike in politics, where this usually goes horribly wrong, in fiction we get a hero like Robert McCall, who this time around in The Equalizer 3 stumbles injured into a remote Italian coastal village where the local mafia is involved in an international drug ring believed to be raising money for jihadis. It's game on when the supposedly retired McCall has a phone number that picks up in Langley or somewhere. Operatives are then on their way as he befriends the townsfolk who are being tormented by an array of violent, beyond redemption sociopaths who don't know until it's too late that they've messed with the wrong guy. If this sounds pretty generic, you may not have seen the first two Equalizers or be familiar in general with Denzel Washington, whose stage presence borders on omnipotence. While the violence in this one can put some horror films to shame, director Antoine Fuqua uses it surgically and sparingly. It's no John Wick. The violence is interwoven into complex storylines and subplots, and especially into McCall's life situation, of which we know some tragic facts, but little of his inner life and struggle for belonging. Support kudos go to Dakota Fanning as CIA agent Emma, and to Gina Scoladero as McCall's friend Hamina, as well as the Italian actors doing the henchman. Stunningly shot and with an ominous and insistent soundtrack, The Equalizer 3 is a film with few equals in its genre. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. Catch up with us at Take2MovieReview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Welcome to A Cup of Health with CDC, a weekly feature of the MMWR, the Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report. I'm Charlotte Dugan, filling in for your host, Dr. Robert Gaines. Breathing is a natural bodily function that most take for granted, but for people with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or COPD, inhaling and exhaling is a daily struggle. Dr. Ann Wheaton is a researcher with CDC's National Center for Chronic Disease Prevention and Health Promotion. She's joining us today to discuss the health problems associated with COPD. Welcome to the show, Ann.
Thank you.
Ann, what is COPD?
COPD is a group of respiratory conditions, including emphysema and chronic bronchitis, which make it hard to breathe. Some of the symptoms are shortness of breath, chronic cough, and excess mucus production. In addition to chronic symptoms, patients periodically experience flare-ups, during which symptoms get more severe than usual.
What causes COPD?
Most COPD in the United States is caused by tobacco smoke, although about a quarter of COPD patients have never smoked. COPD may also be caused by industrial fumes or other air pollution. A small percentage of COPD cases is caused by genetic disorder.
What impact does COPD have on people's lives?
Since COPD makes breathing difficult, people with COPD may have trouble running errands or walking or climbing stairs.
Is there a cure?
Unfortunately, there is no cure for COPD. However, there are several things patients can do to slow the progression of COPD and control symptoms. First, smokers should make every effort to quit smoking. Just because you've already developed COPD doesn't mean it's too late to quit. Quitting can slow the progression of COPD and may mean fewer symptoms or flare-ups. Second, there are many medications available to treat COPD, but it's important to take them as prescribed. For instance, if your doctor has advised you to take a medication every day, don't skip a dose because you feel okay that day. If your COPD causes low blood oxygen levels, your physician may also prescribe supplemental oxygen. Third, pulmonary rehabilitation combines patient education and exercise training to improve your health quality of life. These personalized plans help manage your symptoms and improve your stamina. Finally, respiratory infections can trigger a flare-up of symptoms, so annual flu vaccines are recommended for people with COPD.
And where can listeners get more information about COPD?
Listeners can go to cdc.gov/COPD, and to get help quitting smoking, they can call 1-800-QUIT-NOW or visit smokefree.gov online.
Thanks, Ann. I've been talking today with CDC's Dr. Ann Wheaton about the health problems associated with COPD. Although there's no cure, it can be managed with medications and pulmonary rehabilitation. People with COPD who smoke are strongly encouraged to quit. Until next time, be well. This is Charlotte Dugan for A Cup of Health with CDC.
For the most accurate health information, visit www.cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Arthritis is common among veterans. Traumatic and overuse injuries during active duty are risk factors for developing arthritis. Fortunately, there are low-cost or no-cost strategies that can help veterans manage arthritis. Physical activity can reduce pain and improve function. It can also help improve mood and play a role in managing other chronic conditions, such as heart disease, diabetes, and obesity. You can do low-impact activities, such as walking, biking, swimming, and water aerobics, all good forms of exercise. Arthritis-specific classes can help you get started. Information on classes, exercise programs, and tools are available at cdc.gov/arthritis. These resources can help reduce pain and improve function. Learning self-management techniques can help all veterans become more active, improve their overall quality of life, and thrive.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
This is a message from CDC.
After hurricanes, tornadoes, and floods, standing water and excess moisture help mold grow in your home, garage, and other structures. When you return to a home that has been flooded, know that you're likely to have mold. Mold puts your family's health at risk. If you have mold growing in your home, you should clean it up and fix other water problems, such as leaks in roofs, walls, or plumbing. Keep your children and pets out of affected areas until you've cleaned. Control moisture in your home to prevent mold growth. To remove mold growth from hard surfaces, use commercial products, soap and water, or a bleach solution of no more than 1 cup of household laundry bleach in 1 gallon of water. Follow the manufacturer's instructions. Never mix bleach with ammonia or other household cleaners. It will produce dangerous, toxic fumes. Open windows and doors to provide fresh air.
For more information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
Donald Trump's lawyer asserts that the federal indictment alleging a conspiracy and attempt to overturn the 2020 election result is an attack on free speech. Is it? I'm Bill Newman, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute. Trump's lawyer insists that the former president believed and believes that there was voter fraud and that Trump had a First Amendment right to speak out on that issue, and therefore the case should be thrown out. Let's be clear. Donald Trump was and is entitled to the First Amendment protection of freedom of speech, and at this point we hasten to add, a presumption of innocence. And the First Amendment indeed widely protects speech, including lies. And the indictment itself concedes that Trump had a right to speak publicly about the election and to claim, even falsely, that there had been fraud. And part of the evidence cited in the indictment in support of the conspiracy and obstruction charges is what he said, the words he uttered, sometimes publicly. But the indictment is not premised on what Trump said. It is about what he did. The allegation is that he tried to get election officials to change results to help create false sets of electors. So, as National ACLU attorneys David Cole and Ben Weisner wrote in a recent widely published opinion piece, Donald Trump is not being prosecuted for constitutionally protected speech any more than a bank robber is being prosecuted for saying to the teller, "Hand over the money." The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU because freedom can't protect itself.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1895. That was the day that Booker T. Washington delivered what came to be known as the Atlanta Compromise speech, which outlined his vision for race relations and black labor in the South. Washington was the founder of the Tuskegee Normal and Industrial Institute, a college designed to train black students for careers in teaching, farming, and other trades. Washington was invited to give an address to the Cotton States and International Exposition in Atlanta. It was the first time that a black man was asked to speak before a black and white Southern audience. In his speech, he urged Southern landowners and business leaders to employ black labor over European immigrants. He said, quote, "To those of the white race who look to the incoming of those of foreign birth and strange tongue and habits for the prosperity of the South, were I permitted, I would repeat what I say to my own race. Cast down your bucket where you are." He continued, "Cast it down among those people who have, without strikes and labor wars, tilled your fields, cleared your forests, built your railroads and cities, and brought forth treasures from the bowels of the earth, and helped make possible this magnificent representation of the progress of the South." His speech outlined a plan for gradual black economic advancement. He declared, quote, "Agitation of questions of social equality is the extremist folly." Other black leaders, most notably W.E. Du Bois, rejected Booker T. Washington's idea of gradual advancement. Instead, Du Bois fought racial discrimination through the legal system and helped to found the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show.